Filtered episode 360. Yes, 360. Woo. Full circle.
Wow.
I'm your host, Blaine Pudvey, and I'm joined now by my co-hosts, Treg Wilson.
Hello.
Matt Smith.
Good evening.
And we are joined now by a very special guest who is making, I believe it's his 50th appearance on the show, Grant McCagg of recruits.ca.
36.
Well, there you go. Fully 1/10 of the entire episode list.
Yeah.
One behind Lyle Richardson.
Who?
That's right. Yeah.
Spectre Hockey.
Okay.
Lyle.
I'll
We have a
tune
thing
in.
for old sailors.
Okay.
So, anyhow, this episode we're going to talk a little bit about Grant's draft list. We'll talk prospects. We're going to review some of the things that he had covered in the last episode that he was here just before he released his draft list. And Grant, for those who are listening, can you tell them where they can find your draft list so they can go check it out for themselves?
Well, this is my draft list. Okay. Well, for those who are listening, I hate doing this promotion thing, but they can find me at recruits.ca, and they won't know how to spell that. So it's like recruits without an I, or you can get me on Twitter, right?
That's right.
Everybody loves me on Twitter, so that's the spot.
From what I've seen, yeah, you're very popular.
Thank you.
So, all right. So
Right,
we're going to
that's out of
start
the
it
way,
off.
good.
Yeah, that's all out of the way. Now we'll just jump right into it. We'll talk draft and prospects as the draft starts in less than a week now. By the time this episode drops, it'll be just 5 days away.
Excellent.
Exciting time. So Treg, Matt, and myself will be in Nashville so that we can, break down what's happened and compare it to your list. But why don't we just start it off right away with Matt? Kick her off. What questions do you have? What comments?
Are you guys going like to every draft from now on, or what?
We try to.
We try.
Like if it's in Mexico City, you're there.
Yeah.
We might end up in Mexico City after Nashville. So
C. I should have said C, but
That's I'm impressed.
I might have a hard time getting back over the border, but you never know. We'll see what happens. But yeah, we might as well just jump right into it. Kind of got a little bit of a lashing before the start of the show for using A quality material. Not
stop
recording.
Stop wasting it.
So it's not our fault you don't hit record as soon as we come on.
So pretty much the conversation was to do with Montreal's first round pick, and Treg and I were having a conversation more or less that unless the Montreal Canadiens really reach, anybody that they pick with that fifth overall pick should be a very good hockey player for the franchise. Would you agree with that, Grant?
Absolutely. If they take Grayson Sachin with the fifth pick, I'll be a little disappointed, but I'm not expecting that. I'm expecting one of the top 8 guys on my list. And as far as I'm concerned, any of them would be great. I know a lot of Twitter scouts think that there's 4 or 5 guys and that's it. And if it's anyone else, there's going to be hell to pay. But no, I don't agree. I don't think that it's etched in stone who should go 5. And I'll be happy with them. And even the Russian kid.
Speaking of the Russian kid, now, as you know, on Twitter, there is this whole group of people who think it's Michkov or bust. If you don't get Michkov, we're passing on the most talented guy behind Bedard. And my question to all of them is, if he's that talented, why is he not ranked number 2? And I don't think the Russian thing is a that big of a, if he's that good, the Russian thing wouldn't be that big of a deterrent, right?
Yeah.
And in my opinion. And I said the problem with Michkov is we have no idea what his game's like except for what we've seen at the under 18s. Like
Yeah,
we don't
exactly. Yeah.
so how can you sit there on Twitter and be so confident that this is the next coming of Kovalev or whoever you want to compare him to?
Because it's Twitter.
Well, that's just it. And anyway, so Grant, you get a little more insight than I do. What is the positives and negatives with Michkov right now? Because there's rumors now that Anaheim might take him. There's rumors going around from Jeff Merrick, that Pat Verbeek's looking at might be taking him at 2.
Yeah. Well, he's Russian, so that's a negative. That's a huge negative at this point for obvious reasons. He's 5'10" Russian. Actually, I was looking at tape and he's never been officially measured either. And I don't think he's over 5'9", to be honest with you. So somewhere between 5'9", 5'10", I think he was measured with a, Urquhat's yardstick, when they did measure him at 5'10". And yeah, I wouldn't even be surprised if he's 5'8.5". So you you've got an undersized Russian winger. The last one that was top 5, and I was looking back at it. Sure, it was 20 years ago, but I remember it fondly. Stan Chistov, he scored 5 goals in the World Juniors in his draft year. Looked fantastic in the internationally, which is all we really saw, right? So we thought, oh, this kid's he's can't miss. And Anaheim, coincidentally, was the team that picked him that year, right? 5th overall. And he ended up being a bust. So there's no guarantees with these guys, especially in this instance where he's not coming over for 3 years. You don't know how he's going to develop. I've seen these guys get buried, even Canadians prospects that we've seen in the last few years, like Romanov, playing 8 minutes a game, in the KHL and stuff. I mean, you couldn't get him over soon enough, right? If he'd had another year or 2 in Russia, who knows if he'd be the player that he is today. So there's no control in that sense. I've heard character things, and they'll a lot of teams are going to interview him this week and get more into that. But word is that he's not the best teammate out there either, and I mean it's all part of it, right? You want a chemistry, you want a kid that's not a prima donna, that gets it, that's going to help you win games. And there's a lot of question marks there with Michkov. Is he going to? How many 5'10" Russians have had great playoffs in the NHL? How many can you name? I can't think of any, actually. Maybe he becomes the first. Maybe. So, there's tons of question marks with him. Besides the fact that, yes, 2 years ago in world, under 18s and under 17s, 3 years ago, and he looked great. And there's no doubt about it that he has a lot of talent, but there's so much unknown there that I think you just have to, especially in the top 5, I'd be very surprised if a team took that chance when there's other really good talent out there.
How about now? Is it working
Yes.
now?
Yeah.
Okay. Jesus. Me and the mute button. We're going to have words.
I suppose that's Matt and my fault too. Is it, Blaine?
Yeah. Totally.
At least we know.
We're going to have words. Yeah. Anyway, as I was trying to say before I made my silly error, there's another Russian in recent history who's about 5'10", who went very high in the draft, who has who was expected to be a superstar, who had all the skill offensively, and that's Nail Yakupov. He did not turn out. He lacked the size. He lacked that character piece that you were talking about as well. And at least with Nail, he played in North America, so they had some idea of how he would be able to deal with that. Whereas Michkov, there's question marks covering a lot more area.
No, that's a great point. I hadn't even thought of Yakupov, you know. And I mean, there wasn't, you know, Russia hadn't invaded Ukraine at that point either, you know. There's that factor too, obviously. And I mean, it's a huge thing, you know. Like, it is Putin going to want to, you know, the next KHL superstar to come over at 18, 19, maybe. I don't know all the ins and outs, but I mean, his dad ended up mysteriously dead as well, which I think is just yet another layer where does he even want to come over? You know, will he sign after his 3-year contract's up? There is another 5'10" winger that you can compare him to, I guess, to a certain degree would be Kaprizov too, right? But Kaprizov was drafted 8 years ago.
In the 5th round.
They're on their third general manager since. They have not won a playoff round since. Sure, he's getting 90, 100 points now, but you know, did that help out the GM that drafted him? Or the second GM? No. So, you know, do you have to wait 8 to 9 years for Michkov to help you win a playoff round? Well, do you have to take a top 5 pick on that guy because by his 5th year, he's scoring 90, 100 points in regular season? You know, I don't know that he's going to be somebody that dominates in the playoffs of the NHL playoffs. There weren't any Michkov types that were dominating in the, you know, in the NHL playoffs. You have to go back quite a piece so there's lots of factors there. And when you put them all into place, I wouldn't take him at 5. I really wouldn't.
So another
risk is a lot.
Yeah.
That risk is very high. Now, Matt, you were saying?
So another player that Twitter and most social media outlets have high on their list is Ryan Leonard, a player who in a lot of interviews really talks about being an agitator and kind of being that gritty kind of new age power forward, models his game after Tkachuk, Alex Tuck, and Zach Hyman. What are your thoughts on Ryan Leonard as a potential pick for the Canadiens at 5?
Yeah, I like that. I've got him 5 in my mock draft. I have him going to the Habs in the mock draft. So yeah, I like that. I like that idea a lot.
Okay.
You know,
and why should fans be excited about this guy?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think he'd be a crowd favorite. There's little, like, I was trying to think back of the last Habs player that kind of fits his description, and the closest I could come up with was Claude Lemieux.
Right.
You know,
Terry Ryan, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Didn't he hit really good, eh, Trey?
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying. Wow.
No. Oh boy, that'll yeah. That wouldn't get the Twitter crowd going. Eh? Yeah, he's the next Terry Ryan. No.
Well, I just meant in style of play.
Yeah. No. Just I'm thinking like a guy that, you know, at playoff time that, you know, that is going to shine. You know, he's got that type of game where, you know, I mean, Terry Ryan, I guess if he'd have made the NHL, may have shined at, you know, at playoff time too, because he was that type of player, like you say. But he ran into injuries and stuff. But he's a lot better skater than Terry Ryan. I think that's why Terry Ryan didn't really make it, was his skating. Ryan Leonard's one of the did a scouts poll in the draft guide, and he was the 4th ranked skater among NHL scouts. So he brings that grit. He brings competitiveness every shift. Like, he goes out to hurt guys, Zach LaRue with a really good shot and really fast, that's not a bad, I think he's going to be a fan favorite if he gets picked by them. And I think he fits in what they're looking for. He adds to the mix perfectly. And I think that he'd be a great pick at 5.
He's got that nonstop motor as well. It's kind of reminiscent of Brendan Gallagher a little bit. And that's been the big talking point since Gallagher's joined the Canadiens is, this kid would have gone a lot higher had he been a 6-foot player. Now there's a kid who's about 6 feet tall who plays a similar brand.
Yeah.
I don't think you can go wrong with that kind of player.
And a lot better skater, Like, that's I think that's key, especially at the high-paced playoff games where I love Gallagher, but, even in playoff time games at times, he's been just, a little behind, So I don't see any real weaknesses in his game, which is always nice. They always, you want a high ceiling, but high floor is not a bad thing either, because you don't want to bust in the top 10. You want a kid that's gonna be top 6, and I can't see Leonard not being a top 6 forward in the NHL.
Now, he scored really, really high in a lot of the tests at the scouting combine. How much weight is put onto that prior to the draft meetings?
Well, it's part of it, and I think part of it too is that he's built like a and
like Treg.
Yeah, when they see him there, it's like, holy frig, Treg wishes he looked like that when he was 18.
I'm only 5'6",
yeah.
so I don't intimidate anybody.
No, very impressive.
We call him Papa Smurf for a reason.
Yeah, he's almost 6 foot, and that's some people say, well, can he play a power forward game? Like, one scout was saying to me, well, he's not as, he's 1.5 inches shorter than Sam Bennett. And well, no, at their combines, I think there's a 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch difference. I'm sorry, that's immaterial. When you're as strong and as fast and as determined as he is, and that nonstop motor, like you say, he I think his height is not going to be an issue as far as being a power forward goes. I think he can play that game and score 30 plus goals.
You don't need to be like a Tom Wilson type to be a power forward, right? No. Obviously it's nice, but you don't need to be that kind of big brute of a player to play that power style that he employs. Right.
Like Sam Bennett plays that style, and he's 6 foot and 1/4 inch or whatever. So
right.
1/2 inch doesn't, I think is irrelevant.
I want to say that's what she said, but
but you did.
Are you going to go to that sponsor again now that you used to have?
Manscaped.
Yeah.
Now we're good.
Now a message from Manscaped.
So how do you think I got that 1/2 inch back?
Well, now you're playing with a full inch. Good for you, man.
He's halfway there.
So is it safe to say that if they draft Ryan Leonard, people may get over the fact that they didn't draft Tkachuk?
Yeah, hey, maybe, eh?
You know, like
Right.
I mean, I still
Well,
can't
there's
believe.
no KK that to go cray cray about this
Oh,
stuff. So yeah,
the, the
maybe.
funny the funny part of that whole thing is everyone didn't want Kachuk. Everybody wanted
Yeah.
Most people wanted Zadina.
Zadina.
Zdeno. So,
Lady Zadina. Yeah.
I had Evan Bouchard high on my list. I remember that.
you did.
Who?
I remember that.
Yeah,
Evan
I
Bouchard.
had Evan
Yeah.
Bouchard high on my list.
And speaking of defensemen,
That's not even the
you
same draft, is it? That was a different draft.
I think I went 10th.
Are you thinking
10th.
Quinn?
Quinn
I think,
Hughes.
I think Bouchard went that year.
Dobson and I had Dobson and Bouchard 5-6,
Looking
but
it up.
that was the year before, I believe.
Maybe.
speaking of
Or
defensemen,
after.
David
Anyway.
Reinbacher. There's a lot of people who think if they take Reinbacher, it's going to be the end of the Canadians for the rest of eternal history.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And
Correction.
I know.
Sorry. Evan Bouchard went 10th overall, 2018.
18, yeah.
That's Dallas.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Same
that's
year.
Dallas.
Yeah. Same year as
Same year.
same year as Kakaniemi. Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
And
okay.
I had okay, sorry.
Yeah,
And
no
I
worries.
had Bouchard 5 and Dobson 6.
Yeah.
I believe that year.
Yeah. Bouchard went 10 and
And
Dobson went 12.
I couldn't believe that they dropped outside of the top 10.
Yeah.
Or top 9 anyways. Yeah, no, that's right. And
I remember that. I remember that draft because Treg and I stayed up late enough to watch the sunrise.
yeah.
And still went to
Well,
day two.
Get to be my age, they all sort of meld together after a while. Thanks.
No
man.
worries. No worries.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, Trey. Go ahead.
No, I was just going on about Reinbacher. So I noticed you were kind of had a thing on Twitter today about Reinbacher. And because you were saying how a lot of people are focusing on the fact that he's a defensive type defenseman and not really a offensive type defenseman. But you made a good point. I just kind of want to see if you bring that up again on the show about the number of people who actually were 50-point defensemen and like the number of top pairing defensemen who were 50-point defensemen, which Reinbacher probably could be.
Yeah.
And so just we're going to reiterate on that tweet that you were putting out today on Reinbacher and why he would be a good pick even at 5.
Yeah, well, there's only a few top pairing defensemen that score 40 plus points, like maybe half of them. A lot of teams have a balance there. Like you have the 50-point defenseman ideally, and you've got the all around guy that maybe chips in 30 to 50. That I think that's what Reinbacher's going to be, that he can play 18 plus minutes a game. I think you got to look at the team too, and Montreal, like there's a possibility he ends up being the number 2 right defenseman, but Mailloux, Hudson, Gooley, Reinbacher, that'd be a really nice top 4. And I think he's a perfect partner for Hudson. If you're looking, you're trying to look into the future, you got Gooley and Mailloux, the offensive and defensive guy, and you've got Hudson, Reinbacher, the offensive defensive guy. The defensive guy that can look after the end, that can clear the front of the net, that can do the stuff in the corners, that can be sitting back when Hudson's doing his magical stuff. And you have to sort of project these guys that way, and I think that would be such a valuable piece. You build from the back end out, they say, and you want that top 4 defense to be elite. And sometimes you take guys in the top 5, top 10 that aren't necessarily going to be first pairing. Maybe he is, maybe Hudson and Reinbacher become the first pair, and Mailloux and Gooley are the second pair. But you don't worry about it. you look at it and you plug it in and you say, yeah, this fits, this works, you know. Is he a second pairing? Is he a first pairing? Well, it doesn't matter. Did it matter that Guy Lapointe was the third defenseman? You know, he was on the second pairing of the big three back in the 70s. No, but it was they didn't win if they just had Robinson and Savard. They had freaking Lapointe too. They had the big three. So to me, it's such an important component. And we get so wound up on is he this, is he that? Well, it doesn't matter. He fits. And Reinbacher to me would be a great fit. He's a right defenseman. They're loaded on the left side. Fine. You get rid of a couple of the left defensemen down the road, the ones that don't make it. You keep Mayu, you keep Reinbacher, and if Barron's the third pairing guy, perfect. And you get rid of a couple left defensemen to fill other spots. It's all about assets. You build assets, and if they think Reinbacher's the guy, I'm gonna be on board 100% because I think he'd be a great fit.
He's also highly mobile, and that's the direction that they're going with the blue line now anyway. So they want guys who can move. They want guys who have good speed. He's excellent on the breakouts as well. He launches the offense for his team all the time. He can carry it up or he can pass it up. He's very, very he's very smart in the way he starts the offensive game. So I wouldn't be against that pick. I mean, there's flashier names, clearly. But if you can get a defenseman who can play 20, 25 minutes a night and provide you 40 to 50 points in that range, that's a top pair.
Yeah, for sure. And I also, I know I floated it out there too, the fact that maybe if Washington comes, saying, hey, we want Michkov. We think Arizona is going to take Michkov at 6. Why don't we move up to 5? Or Detroit at 9? Like, I think you at least consider that, because I do really think that there's 8 or 9 guys that after the top 2 guys, it's up in the air. And that's often how the draft turns out. It's the third or fourth pick often isn't the third or fourth best player in a draft. So I think that the guys that could go 3 and 4 aren't going to be the best. So if you're looking at the draft and the guys go 3 and 4 who you don't have there, and you can move back 3 spots, and one of the 3 or 4 guys that you really like, you think is going to be there, you have to at least consider it. And Detroit has the 17th pick.
Yeah.
You look at maybe moving back to 9 and getting the 17th pick. It would certainly be something to consider.
I mean, if you do have Reinbacher as your selection, there's a very good chance he's there anyway. So that would probably be a good way to use your assets and add a little bit.
I think Philly will look seriously at him at 7 if he's there. But yeah, I mean, if Dvorsky's there at 9, if you got Dvorsky in the 17th pick, I think I personally think that would be just amazing. But so to me, there's a lot of options there, and I don't think that Hughes and the staff are married to any one guy at 5. So, you've heard a lot more rumors about the moving up, but I think the one where they move up to 4, that doesn't make any sense to me at all. I don't, I think that's just them making phone calls, but they're not seriously considering moving up 1 spot. I don't think that just doesn't make sense to me.
I don't think they really have the assets to move up to 2 either, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, maybe, but
I mean, they'd have to give up something huge, that's for sure.
Yeah, they would. I don't see Anaheim doing it. It's been 30 years since a team, move back out of the top two, outside of the top four. So it doesn't happen very often, you know. Phone calls are made all the time, but it just it's a rarity that a team would do something like that.
Now you got Dvorsky at 3 on your list, and you just mentioned him a little bit earlier. What is it in his game that brought him that high onto your list? Because there's going to be a lot of people that are going to crap on you for that one because he's ahead of Michkov and a few others.
Are going to? Yeah, you got that.
Do you follow Grant there, Blaine? Do you follow him on Twitter at all?
Yeah, I think the proper word there is "were." Yeah,
I was trying to be political.
That are, yeah. Yeah. Well, I just think he's going to help you win playoff games, and I put so much emphasis on that. And you know, I think part of the bias there, perhaps, is that when I'm finalizing my list, I'm watching the NHL playoffs. So you know, it does have a large impact on me. But I don't see a lot of players like Will Smith dominating in the NHL playoffs. You know, to me, there's question marks with the Will Smiths out there, and even Leo Carlsson, who a lot of people love. I just don't see those guys being competitive enough to make a difference at playoff time. There's more question mark with them adapting to being good NHL playoff players than there is to Dvorsky scoring enough. I think that he can, and I think there's less question mark with him. I think he's a gamer. I think he's underrated because he played in the men's league at 17 all the year, and people thought, you know, oh, look at his stats, you know. Well, sometimes you have to look beyond that. And with Dvorsky, he's one of those guys that I really think anytime he plays against his peers, he lights it up. So
yeah,
that to me is more indicative of what we can see down the road than him not putting up as good a numbers as Leo Carlsson did, who was half a year older, which is another factor. You know, you have to factor that into. He, you know, he's a late birthday, so he's always been playing with a group ahead, and that's important. You know, you factor all of that in. So I think Dvorsky, we've just seen the tip of the iceberg with that kid, and his defensive game, I think, is going to be great. And I think there's more offense there than people maybe give him credit for. So I just think he's going to be a consummate top two center. And on you know, certain teams, he'll be like, if Columbus took him at 3, I see him being their first line all around center that is a perfect complement for Laine, Goudreau, Johnson, all these kind of one-way wingers, you know, that really need that Bergeron, Riley type center down the middle. That's just the perfect complement. I don't know that Columbus is going to take him. I think though that he's seriously in their mix though, and it wouldn't surprise me if they did end up taking him like I predicted in my mock draft.
Well, they did say that they were going to be picking a center at 3, so I would not be surprised that he is on their list in some way, shape, or form, right near the top. I mean, like you mentioned, he's highly competitive over the entire length of this the ice, over 200 feet. He's attacking all the time. His defensive game is very mature. We saw it at the World Juniors. He played a shutdown role while also leading their first line. He's got great vision. He's got a great shot. And we saw that at the under 18s where he dominated offensively for Slovakia against players his own age. So in a couple of years, after a little bit more time developing, I could see that he could. I don't see why he couldn't be like the next Nick Suzuki type of centerman.
Yeah, no, that's not a bad comparison. You know, I see a bit of Bergeron, a bit of Riley, a bit of Suzuki, that type. And I mean, in this draft, as far as I'm concerned, that's top 5 all day. Now you see most lists where he's not, and that's fine. I mean, I understand the offensive potential of Smith and Carlson, and I get it. I just have concerns with their play away from the puck, especially, and it's important. It's never not going to be important, especially at playoff time.
Where do you think the cutoff is in this first round where now you're reaching if you pick this guy? Like where, like I noticed you have like a guy like Oliver Moore at 16, Kobe Barlow, but even those guys could be top 10 picks if the team wants them. But where do you see the cutoff as, say, Montreal, for Montreal to reach? Where are they cutting it off here? If you look at your list, where would you think they're cutting it off? Like that's a reach. If I worded that
At 5, you mean?
No, I'm saying, yeah, Montreal's picking at 5 on your list. What player would you think it would be a reach? Like, I mean, I know Craig Button was talking about Peleka, and you have him at 30. You know what I mean? Now, that was a little bit of a TSN mistake because that's not really who he said was going to go 5th. It was just his, you know.
Well, that would be a reach.
Yeah, but that's what I'm asking. Like when I look down your list, and I'm like, okay, I've heard a lot of good things about Oliver Moore. I've heard a lot of good things about Kobe Barlow. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
So where is a reach in this? Like, how deep is this first round?
Well, I mean, at 5, I think there's 8 guys, and after that, I'd be surprised if they took someone after that. But I mean, Zach Benson, I suppose, is a guy that, maybe goes top 5, but it's just the size and skating thing that, translating to the NHL, as much as you love them. There's 8 or 9 guys. Like even Gabe Perreault wouldn't be a bad pick for the Habs. He's just so skilled. And I think he's been underrated on independent lists too. Like every NHL scout I talk to says he's going top 10. So, that's one of the reasons I put him top 10. But I mean, he led the U.S. development. He had more points than Smith, basically the same size, maybe a little smaller, but oh man, I've had it compared to Marner, he sees the ice so well, he's so skilled. So you got to throw him in the mix that if the Canadians said, well, we're taking him, I don't see that as a reach either, really. Daniel Boot, I don't think it's a reach other than that it would be very, very risky because I don't think they're taking any Russian, but wow. I mean, he could be an NHL superstar if he comes over and everything falls into place. So that's not a reach for me either. So Willander, I don't think is really a reach. He, he'd be a good pick too. So I love David Edstrom. I wouldn't mind him getting picked at 5th overall. So I guess I'll say there's an unlucky 13th that. And then after that, then you're starting to reach, Barlow. He could be a goal scorer. I get that too, where he's not really a horrible pick at 5 either. So there's good picks to be made in this draft. It's going to be a nice class. And one of the reasons why I wouldn't be averse to them taking the 9th and 17th pick of Detroit King Colin. Eisenman says, well, I took Vasilevsky in Tampa. I took Nemestikov. I took Kucherov. I want Michkov. Well, 9th and 17th pick, I'd strongly consider it because there's no guarantees that the top 5 guys are going to be the best. Every draft, I went back over every draft since it started, and there's only been 3 players. There's never been more than 3 of the top 5 picks that ended up being the most productive players in a draft class ever. So there's never been a draft And I mean, yeah, well, you factor in goalies and defensemen or whatever, but I looked at all of them, and there's never been a draft where the top 5 picks ended up being the top 5 players in the draft. So you have to stay open-minded with that. And, as we said at the start before we started recording, I'm not going to be upset by any player that they take at 5 if that's where they stay. I think it's going to be a heck of a player regardless. So I hope Hab fans don't have a conniption. That we all have our favorites and stuff, but I think there should be multiple favorites for this one, and that I think they're getting a great player regardless. Be happy. Don't worry.
If they don't pick the guy that I want, I'm climbing to the top of that bridge and jumping off.
It's Bergevin's fault. Fucking Bergevin.
Yes.
All right.
I'm going to blame you because you have his hair.
Okay.
Well, they didn't take Wright last year, and as it's turned out, the sky hasn't fallen yet, right? So hopefully.
Well, in all honesty,
they weren't wrong.
When they picked Slafkovsky, it really wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
No, I know.
It's really not as bad.
I think and I like to hope that I get a little bit of credit for that. For
you convinced me the day of the draft.
All it took was you buying him a couple of beers.
Yeah, you convinced me. I even had the "Make the Right Choice" shirt on, which Slafkovsky saw me wearing and laughed at me.
Well, they were certainly a lot more tolerant of Hughes' decision than they were of mine earlier, and that's fine because I'm not a GM of an NHL team. But I sat at McCagg. I didn't even go in because there was such vitriol, and I didn't even go into the draft for the first pick because I just didn't want to be there if they took Wright and if I was completely wrong. Because the way people were acting, I didn't know how they'd react to me. I honestly didn't. So I sat in La Cage au Sport with Tony Marinaro and waited it out. And sat there just tears came down because it was just such relief to me that, what I had been saying and what I felt came to fruition. It was just so emotional because I had taken so much abuse about saying that Wright wasn't the right guy. It was really tough. And, but, I was just so relieved. I had tears of joy when they took Slafkovsky because it just and then I felt comfortable to go into the draft. And I hate to say it, but it's true. It was just because there was such a toxic atmosphere on social media about it that I was actually afraid to go in. If they had taken Wright. So I was damn glad that they took Slafkovsky, put it that way.
I think everyone's going to be glad they took Slafkovsky in another couple of years, to be honest with you. So I think he's going to be the better. He may not be the best player of the draft, but I think he's going to end up to be a better all around player than Wright. But that's
not a lot of players can. Yeah, not a lot of players can play in Montreal.
Yeah,
and handle that pressure.
No, and I'm not sure Wright could have. I don't think he's real tough-skinned kid. Tough-minded, and I think Slafkovsky is. He just lets it roll. Rolls with it. He may not be the most productive player in the draft, but he's gonna. His corner where he's such a strong big kid, there's going to be so many things that he does that are just going to be good at playoff time too, where a couple of years ago that fourth line, right, Armia, Stahl, I mean, they were a huge part of why the Canadians prospered. Well, that's what, he's going to be he's going to cycle down low, and you aren't going to be able to stop him, when he gets rolling in the playoffs, when the Habs are finally good enough. I think everyone's going to be real happy that they picked that kid.
He showed signs of that last year on the ice, getting down in the corners, getting the puck in deep. Use some
Pucks in deep.
Get down in the corners and start cycles well. I don't know. To me, I felt he got better every game until he got injured and then had to leave. The thing I think with him is he just got to learn to keep his head up, and I think that's his biggest fault right now. That he got to. I think it's one of those. He got the Lindros.
Well, he's never used to getting knocked over.
Yeah, yeah. He has the Lindros syndrome.
Yeah. And I liked, I don't know, if you caught any of that Knuckles interview there, but he's, yeah, you keep my head up,
Yeah.
like he knows, and he'll learn from it for sure.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And now moving down a little bit in the draft list, we're looking at the 31st pick now for the Canadians, and there's quite a few interesting names that you have down there near the end of the first. And this is where the real depth of the draft, in my opinion, starts to shine. And that is, you've got players like Saleh, Bonk, Gauthier, Cowan from London. These are some really, really good names. And players in other draft years where they would probably be closer to the 10th overall pick, 10 to 15 versus 32nd.
Yeah, I have a template that I use for the draft guide, and so last year's grades for each, I got down to number 25 or whatever, I had to change the grading all the way down to the first round. It was 3 to 4 spots difference, which tells me that it's a lot deeper draft than last year. A kid that is at the end of the first round of this one is probably went top 20 last year. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool that they have 3 top 37 picks, not just the 31st pick, but 37.
Yeah,
and maybe they can even package the two of them. There's that possibility. And I don't know if they're going to go after Hrabel, the Czech goalie, or not, but I'd certainly look into it. There's 6 teams with multiple picks in the first, and I have a feeling that might be a team with multiple firsts that takes the goalie. So you have the other pick to fall back on in case that unpredictability of the goalie not working out. But yeah, I wouldn't be averse to them blowing something off where they got the big Czech goalie either. I think that would fill a huge need going forward.
A lot of people want to see Montreal take a goalie either at the end of the first round or with that 37th pick. In your mock draft, you don't have them taking a goaltender, and you have a lot of goaltenders going in the second round. With that being said, where do you kind of see Montreal taking a goaltender if they do in the draft?
Well, they may. I mean, it's mostly because of ranking that I didn't. I mean, I like that Gajan kid a lot.
Right.
And maybe they look at him at 37.
Right.
If you like a goalie and once they start to go, you step up and you take them. Like Sogard. Nobody, I don't think, had him ranked early second when Ottawa took him, but they had the need, they liked him, they stepped up and they took him. So certainly, yeah, Gajan at 37 would not surprise me at all if they don't get Hrabel.
Right.
That they look at that seriously. I know they certainly talked to the kid. I had someone was telling me that, I guess, I don't know if it's Vinny Riando or whatever, was was grilling Gajan and asking him, what's the number of that guy? And asking him all these, grilling him earlier in the year. So I think there's interest in him, and they might seriously consider him at 37 for sure. So yeah, I hope with one of their top 3 picks that they take one, even though I didn't, like you say, I didn't have them taking one with their top 3 picks in the mock, but it wouldn't surprise me at all, for sure.
That's assuming they even have that pick, because I mean, Dubois is out there taking pictures with Cole Caulfield and David out, and they're hanging out. I mean, it's clear this is definitely going to happen because of these pictures of players that have the same.
Who do you think took the picture at Carey Price's house?
That'd be Dubois for sure.
Exactly. Look in the reflection of the window. He's there.
Thought it was Paul Byron, but okay.
Paul Byron was
in the picture.
Paul Byron was in the picture.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Although he is pretty fast. He's very fast. He might have been able to do it.
Yeah.
I thought you meant the one of just him and his wife and kids sitting on the step.
Oh, well.
Dubois guaranteed he's going to be there. Montreal won't pick a center because they got 12 now, and it's
done deal.
Anyway.
But all the kidding aside, there's talk of the Canadians moving up, trying to move up to 2, blah blah blah. But maybe they're trying to move up to one of the St. Louis Blues picks around 25, because the Blues have 3 first rounders, and they have made it clear that they will move at least one of those.
Yeah, well, that's who I have taking Rabel in the first, because they have 3 first round picks. But yeah, I could see that for sure. Do you 31 and 37 to move up to 25 seems a little rich, but if they really want Rabel, and I'm not sure, but they're going to be so stacked at pretty much every position, I think, after this draft, that's the one position where they really have a need. But then, maybe they do consider doing that. It depends how much they like him. He 6'7", the goalie. Certainly the potential's there with his athleticism and his talent. So, it'll be interesting to see if, I don't know if 31st and 3rd rounder, do they have a 3rd rounder?
Yeah.
Well, maybe you dangle that, maybe Mike Hoffman. Hey, no, that probably won't work.
Maybe not. Before my last question, before I let the other guys just go for it. I'm looking. You look at the list. You mentioned your grading system. How far down on the list before those numbers drop to a player that is no longer a first round talent?
I'm not sure I can answer that. Like how far down? I don't know, like early 30s, I guess. Like every year, even this year, it's tough to rank 32 legitimate first rounders,
Yeah. Like
even Easton Cowan, as much as I'd like him, he's 5'10", winger. There's question marks there. So I'd say, right close to where I have the 32 guys is legitimate first round talent. But there's some years where after 20 you're thinking that, that there's really only 20 legitimate first round guys. So I'd say it's maybe 35.
A significant number.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That is a lot.
Yeah.
Guys, what do you got?
Go ahead, Matt.
I have no further questions. I'd like to thank you for coming on. And now that I have that whole thought of with the pictures with Savard and Caulfield and everything with Dubois, I can see at the draft Shawn Michaels WrestleMania type moment, Dubois on a zip line to the Canadiens table, and he makes the draft selection, and it's a winger because they already have him at center.
As long as it doesn't turn out like Owen Hart, I'm all for it.
Yeah, but what if he comes down, zips down, and says they're picking me?
Yeah,
I re-entered the draft.
Yeah.
Well, no, 5th pick for me.
I think that's a bit high for Dubois, but
the lights, they go up there to make their pick, and then all the lights just go. The Undertaker's music starts, lights go down, and then lights come back up, and he's there wearing the jersey. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Elliot Freeman, by God!
Yeah.
That's Dubois' music.
Yeah.
I don't really have a lot of further questions. You pretty much had what I had, but I see a scenario. I don't think Canadians keep the 31st pick, whether it's to move up in the draft or it's to get Dubois or it's to whatever. So I think that 37th pick actually becomes a little bit more important than, like, everyone seems to dismiss that 37 pick, and you brought it up a few times, Grant. They have 3 picks in the top 37. And if this draft is 35 deep, you're almost getting a first-round pick with every pick you have in the top 37. So I guess I'll just throw some predictions out there. I think Montreal is going to pick a goalie with the 37th pick, at least if they don't keep the 31st. I think, again, I'm just going to reiterate, whether it's Leonard, Benson, Reinbacher, Michkov, whoever at 5, it's going to be a good play. It's going to be a great player for Montreal, and it's going to, it's really going to push this team forward. And the only surprise I think we're going to have is whether they draft that 31st pick, they trade it for Dubois, or they trade it to move up or down, or whatever they're going to do in the draft. And I actually really like your 9 and 17 for the 5th, because I mean, at that point, you could get Reinbacher and say an Oliver Moore or or something like that. And so you didn't get the big guy, you didn't get the Leonard or the Michkov, but hey, you got 2 guys that's going to fill 2 holes going forward. So instead of just 1. So I think it's going to be an exciting draft. And again, I just want to reiterate, I know people are set on certain players, but it's not. This draft, it's not going to matter. It's really not going to matter who they draft. It's going to
matters to them.
Actually, I do have a question, Grant. Now that I think about it, who do you think is NHL ready after this draft? Like, who do you think is going to go straight into the? I mean, Bedard probably, but who do you think is going to, besides him?
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's a pile of them this year either.
Yeah.
Fantilli could play in the NHL next year. Dvorsky, if he goes to Columbus, I could see him making Columbus next year. I mean, Sillinger did, and I think he's a better prospect than Sillinger. He's like, coach is going to love him, After that, I think that those are the 3 most likely to
Leo Carlson,
maybe. If he goes to San Jose or whatever, they've got holes. So yeah, depending. If he goes top 4, they might bring him in. And certainly 5-on-5 in the SHL, I thought he still needed work. But he could help a power play, and if you can put up with the other stuff, he's really physically immature. They showed him at the draft there. He looks like Nolan Patrick, like no meat on his, just like you, Treg, no meat on the shoulders and stuff. So like he's got to build that up, right? So I hope both of you can get that together.
I'm trying.
Yeah,
Grant scouted me pretty good. Can't skate. Too small. It's pretty accurate. Not a great shot.
But you got the flow.
I got the flow. I got the flow. All right, no, that was my question. I kind of forgot about it, but yeah, other than that, that's all I got there, Blaine. That's all I got.
All right. Well, that's it for me. I mean, I can give you some random crap. Like there's been more pictures taken in the last 7 years than in all of human history prior to that, thanks to the advent of the selfie.
Why did the robot go on vacation?
Jesus, don't.
He needed to recharge its batteries.
Don't.
Okay, I have to go to the washroom, guys. So let's wrap it up.
To throw up after that one. No, Grant, I want to just reiterate what the other guys have said. Say thank you for coming on. We really do appreciate you coming back.
Always a pleasure, guys. Glad to see the Three Stooges there. It's been a while, so excellent.
Matt got something to say, I think.
Yeah. So Grant, again, thanks for coming on. It's been good to come on here and talk to you and to be around the guys. Hasn't been the easiest couple days. As you guys know, Chopper went down, CH-147 in Petawawa. Lost 2 members. Our squadron was one of the aircraft that was called out for the search. Unfortunately, they did recover 2 bodies. Names haven't been released, but anytime anything happens within the Air Force or even the Canadian forces in general, it hits people really hard, and it was a lot of that unknown, not knowing who those 2 people were. We still don't know who they are, but at least I know as of right now that the friends I thought maybe were going to be possibly on that chopper, I have been able to reach out to them. They've reached out to me, etc. So I know it's not any really close friends, but at the end of the day, we're all brothers and sisters in arms. So it's something that it's going to hit the the military community hard, and hopefully we get to the bottom of what happened, and these families can get a little bit of closure.
Yeah, I used to live in Petawawa too, so it hits home for me in that sense too, where I feel I know a lot of I know a lot of gentlemen that worked in Petawawa in the armed forces, and it I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, that's all I got to say.
So again, I just want to thank everybody for coming and listening in, and Grant, thank you for coming on. And of course, there's not much more we can say after that. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in and listening. And remember,